Welcome back to the radio, my friends. What time is it where you are? And where in the world are you listening from tonight? This is Quill of Quilloren Radio, humming through the quiet hours with nothing but static, silence, and a voice still holding the mic. If this calm keeps you company, consider subscribing to the channel. Tonight, you're a night shift radio DJ in 1999 and your audience is slowly disappearing. Without further ado, let's begin. Outside the studio window, the parking lot is empty except for your battered Civic and the janitor's van. The coffee's tepid, the lights are low, and the request lines haven't blinked in 3 nights. But still, you queue up the next track. And somewhere, faint and fading, someone might still be listening. The station sits alone off the bypass, tucked between a defunct muffler shop and a vacant diner with its vinyl booths gutted long ago. You pull into the gravel lot like you always do, slow, careful not to kick up too much dust. The air smells faintly of burnt transmission fluid and early summer grass, the kind that's been growing wild since someone stopped paying to have it cut. You kill the engine. No one else is here, of course. Hasn't been for months, aside from Rick the janitor, and even he started skipping Thursdays. The silence around the building isn't oppressive, more like a shrug. A soft, unbothered quiet that doesn't care whether you show up or not. The key sticks in the door, same as always. The knob wobbles slightly, and you make a mental note to maybe report it, then remember there's no one left to report it to. The manager left in April and never officially said goodbye. Just an email with the subject line, "Moving on." No punctuation. Inside, the air is cool and dry, vaguely metallic. You can hear the low buzz of the fluorescent lights above, one of which flickers with a rhythm that might once have annoyed you but now just blends into the background hum of your life. The hallway to the booth is lined with old promotional posters, curling at the edges. There's a faded one for a Blues Traveler concert from '95. Someone drew a mustache on the lead singer in Sharpie. You don't remember when that happened. You suspect it was you. The studio is dim. You keep it that way on purpose. There's a lamp on the desk, not overhead, just enough to give the boards and the mic a warm little halo. The chair squeaks when you sit, but it's a familiar sound. One of those quiet comforts, like the hiss of a tape rewinding, or the soft clunk of a CD tray closing. You go through the motions. Turn on the monitors. Slide the faders. Load the cartridges even though no one's used them in years. It's muscle memory now. Ritual. You've always believed that sound deserves ceremony, even if no one else hears it. The coffee in the break room is stale. You drink it anyway. There's something comforting in its complete lack of ambition. It tastes like the 2 a.m.s of your 20s. Like the bottom of a thermos on a rainy road trip. Back in the booth, you glance at the switchboard. 5 lines. None blinking. That used to bother you. It doesn't now. You've made peace with the silence. There's something honest about it. People think radio is about connection, but maybe it's always been more about presence, just being there, on the airwaves, even when no one answers back. You check the logbook. Last night you played Joni Mitchell, a little Bowie, and some Gordon Lightfoot. No one called to complain, which you take as a win. You flip open the binder of pre-approved tracks, now more of a suggestion than a rule. The stickers are peeling, and someone's doodled a dragon in the margins of the smooth jazz section. The dragon is wearing sunglasses. You respect that. The clock ticks to 12:01 a.m. You clear your throat. Press the mic button. And speak. Good evening, insomniacs, long-haul truckers, students studying for finals, and anyone else floating out there in the dark. You're tuned into KQRX, 104.7 on the FM dial. This is your night voice, still here, still spinning tracks, still wondering who's listening. There's no reply. Of course not. But the silence feels less empty now. You ease into the next track, something gentle, maybe a little wistful. The kind of song that plays well under streetlights and lonely gas station stops. The sound levels are perfect. You've done this for so long, you could mix it in your sleep. Outside the booth window, the world is unmoving. No headlights pass. No birds stir in the trees. You think you hear the soft clicking of the cooling vents or maybe the building itself, settling like old bones. You find it soothing. A sticky note is still stuck to the corner of the console. It reads, in block letters, "Reboot the system if the red light flickers." Below that, in different handwriting, someone has scrawled, "Unless the flickering is in your soul." You're not sure who wrote that. You hope they're doing okay now. You lean back. The chair groans. The music plays. And for a moment, there's nothing to fix, nothing to plan, no emails to answer. Just you, a dim room full of old equipment, and the soft hum of a signal that might still be reaching someone, a trucker with his window cracked, a nurse driving home, a teenager hiding under blankets with the radio low. Or maybe no one at all. But the station is still broadcasting. That's enough. You glance at the board. Still no calls. But you leave your hand near the button anyway. Just in case. And as the track fades out, you cue the next one. Lo-fi, a little gravelly, but warm, like an old friend's voice you haven't heard in years. It's going to be a long night. You wouldn't have it any other way. The song fades gently into the next, and you settle deeper into the chair, fingers resting lightly on the board, adjusting nothing in particular. The station runs smoother than it has any right to, considering how little attention it gets. Still, you find yourself tweaking the levels just slightly, nudging the gain a hair, because that's what you've always done. The booth is still, lit only by the amber glow of the desk lamp and the blinking red light of the broadcast indicator. Outside the glass window, the hallway is a long stretch of dim nothing, lined with closed doors and silence thick enough to press against. Eventually, you stand and stretch, the kind of slow, deliberate movement that only happens when you know there's no one around to see you. The building doesn't complain. No creaks, no sudden groans of settling drywall. Just the faint hum of electricity behind the walls and the occasional tick from the analog clock above the studio door. You step into the hallway and let the door close behind you, not bothering to lock it. No one's coming in. You haven't had a surprise visitor in over a year, unless you count the raccoon that got stuck in the break room once and knocked over 3 shelves of off-brand instant noodles. You walk without hurry, letting your shoes make soft scuffing sounds against the old linoleum tiles. They're a pale green, the kind of color that only exists in places like public schools, budget clinics, and radio stations that stopped updating their decor in 1987. A few of the ceiling tiles are stained from old leaks. You've meant to report them before, but it always felt unnecessary. Nothing has dripped in months, and the brown blotches have started to look like accidental art. One of them resembles a jellyfish. Another looks vaguely like a dog wearing a hat. You nod to it, as usual. The office doors you pass are mostly shut. Some still bear names on paper labels, though most of the names are faded or crossed out. You pause at the one that says, Traffic and Scheduling, then open it out of habit. Inside, the desk is empty except for a stack of yellowing memos and a coffee mug that reads, Ask me about dead air. You don't remember who owned that mug, but you've always appreciated its commitment to the bit. The air smells faintly of paper and dust. Not unpleasant. Familiar, even. There's a comfort in places that haven't changed. You pick up one of the memos and skim it. It's a reminder about formatting commercial blocks. You put it back without reading the rest. That doesn't concern you anymore. You stopped airing ads 6 weeks ago. The clients stopped calling, and you figured no one would notice the difference. So far, they haven't. You continue down the hall, passing the small kitchenette. The fridge hums steadily, a loyal if not particularly effective machine. There's a flickering overhead bulb, not quite dead but clearly trying to decide if it's worth the effort of staying alive. You open the fridge. A single can of root beer stares back at you, next to a lunch container that's been unlabeled long enough to become community property by default. You leave both undisturbed. Beyond the kitchen is the back door, which leads to a short flight of stairs and then the loading area. The door is locked, but the blinds on the window are half open, giving you a view of the empty rear lot and the row of dumpsters lined up like metal sentries. One of the dumpsters has a painted heart on it. You didn't put it there, and you've never mentioned it aloud. It feels like the kind of thing that would lose power if acknowledged. You retrace your steps and wander into the record library. The shelves are sagging under the weight of thousands of discs and vinyl sleeves, all filed with varying levels of care. Someone, years ago, tried to organize the collection by mood instead of genre. You admire the ambition, even if the result is a little chaotic. There's a shelf labeled, almost joyful, another one simply called Rain. You reach out and slide a case off the shelf marked, Late Night Optimism, and inspect the cover. No one you recognize, but the art is charming. A cat wearing headphones, floating through a starry sky. You don't take anything with you. You never do. The room is less about borrowing and more about remembering that these things still exist, still sit here, waiting. The dust on the cases is soft. You wipe your hand on your jeans and let the lights click off behind you as you leave. Back in the hallway, your footsteps fall into rhythm with the quiet background hum of the station. Somewhere inside the walls, you think you hear the gentle pulse of the transmitter doing its job. The thought comforts you. The signal is still going out. It might be fading, its range not what it once was, but it's still alive. You turn the corner and stop by the old conference room. The door is ajar, and you peek inside. The long table is still there, covered with old flyers, worn-out pens, and a whiteboard bearing a to-do list from 1998. The markers are dry. You tried once. There's a strange dignity in that, too. You close the door and head back toward the booth. The music has looped back to the buffer playlist, a soft instrumental with piano and distant saxophone. You slip inside and take your seat again, adjusting the headphones and glancing at the clock. Not quite 2. The world is sleeping. The lines are still quiet. The mic waits patiently. Your finger hovers over the broadcast button. No one may be listening. But the studio is warm, the equipment hums with quiet loyalty, and the night still has hours to give. You're ready to speak again. You lean forward and press the broadcast button, letting the next track melt into the silence between songs. It's a slow piano piece with no name listed in the file. Just, untitled _3 final mix, in lowercase letters. You don't remember where it came from, but you've played it often. It's become part of the station's quiet vocabulary, a song that means nothing and everything depending on the hour. Your voice slips in between the notes, steady and low. That was something soft for the hour. Still here at KQRX, 104.7. Still broadcasting. Still listening, even if it's just to the walls. You don't need to say more. The airwaves don't ask for much. There's an old drawer to your right, just below the soundboard. It sticks when you pull it, always has, catching on the corner where the wood swelled after that leak years ago. You tug it gently until it comes free with a muted thunk. Inside, it's a mess of cassette tapes, plastic spools, stray cables, and pens that probably dried up before the last presidential election. Buried beneath a coil of unused XLR cable is the mug. You take it out carefully, like it's fragile. It's ceramic, heavy, and shaped more like a camping cup than something meant for a studio. It's black, or maybe just dark with time. The printed logo is chipped, but you can still make it out if you tilt it under the lamp. WHCN 103.2, the late hour. Not this station. Not even this state. Somewhere back in the early 90s, before you moved here, before this building, that was your shift. You run a thumb over the faded letters, remembering how the handle used to get too hot when you filled it with cheap diner coffee. The inside is stained, but not dirty. You'd stopped using it years ago after the station got branded travel tumblers with spill-proof lids. It didn't feel right to toss the old one. So it lived here instead, buried in this drawer, like an artifact that didn't quite know what it meant anymore. You turn it over in your hands. The bottom still has the tiny sticker from the store where you bought it. Half peeled, price smudged, but still there. You remember picking it out because it was the only one with the call letters printed slightly crooked. That imperfection had felt like luck, or at least a quiet joke between you and the universe. You set the mug down on the desk beside the faders. It looks small against the sprawl of buttons and sliders, but somehow it balances the space. The broadcast lamp flickers slightly, casting a red glint across the ceramic surface. For the first time in a while, the booth feels like yours again. Not just a place you work, but a room with corners and stories. A room with memory. Outside the booth window, the sky beyond the parking lot is black, but soft. The stars aren't visible through the light haze, but you can sense their presence, faint and stubborn, still burning behind the clouds. The street lamp by the station sign hums faintly, bathing the weeds and gravel in amber. A moth circles the bulb. It's the only movement you've seen in an hour. You sip the last of the old coffee, now lukewarm and thin. Then you pick up the mug again and wipe it gently with your sleeve before filling it from the pot in the break room. The smell isn't great, but the act itself has meaning. Carrying the mug through the quiet building, hearing the soft slosh of liquid inside, it all makes the space feel more real. Back at your post, the new track is halfway through. You don't recognize this one either. The file name is just a number, something someone uploaded to the library long ago and forgot. It's a little warped at the edges, like the file was ripped from a tape or burned from an old CD with just a bit too much wear. The imperfection fits the hour. You rest your hand next to the mug. It sits there like a companion, unassuming and warm. It doesn't matter that no one can see it. It's enough that it's here, grounding you, giving shape to the desk and the hour in your voice as it carries out across whatever airwaves still carry anything at all. You consider saying something about it on air, but decide against it. There are objects that don't need explaining. Sometimes their presence is more powerful when left unnamed. The listeners, if there are any tonight, wouldn't need to hear about a chipped mug in order to feel the steadiness it brings. They'd hear it in your voice, in the calm between your words. You take a slow sip. It's bitter, but it's heat more than taste now. That's all it needs to be. You glance down at the phone lines again. Still empty. Still waiting. It's strange, but not disappointing. There's a kind of peace in knowing the silence isn't personal. The world simply sleeps. You adjust the fader slightly, not because it needs it, but because your hands are used to being part of the rhythm. Your fingers brush the console like they're turning pages in a book no one else will read. The booth settles around you again. The music fades. The signal carries forward. The coffee stays warm just long enough. And the mug stays right where it belongs. You lean forward and press the broadcast button, letting the next track melt into the silence between songs. It's a slow piano piece with no name listed in the file. Just untitled _3 final mix in lowercase letters. You don't remember where it came from, but you've played it often. It's become part of the station's quiet vocabulary, a song that means nothing and everything depending on the hour. Your voice slips in between the notes, steady and low. That was something soft for the hour. Still here at KQRX 104.7. Still broadcasting. Still listening, even if it's just to the walls. You don't need to say more. The airwaves don't ask for much. There's an old drawer to your right, just below the soundboard. It sticks when you pull it, always has, catching on the corner where the wood swelled after that leak years ago. You tug it gently until it comes free with a muted thunk. Inside, it's a mess of cassette tapes, plastic spools, stray cables, and pens that probably dried up before the last presidential election. Buried beneath a coil of unused XLR cable is the mug. You take it out carefully, like it's fragile. It's ceramic, heavy, and shaped more like a camping cup than something meant for a studio. It's black, or maybe just dark with time. The printed logo is chipped, but you can still make it out if you tilt it under the lamp. WHCN 103.2, the late hour. Not this station. Not even this state. Somewhere back in the early 90s, before you moved here, before this building, that was your shift. You run a thumb over the faded letters, remembering how the handle used to get too hot when you filled it with cheap diner coffee. The inside is stained, but not dirty. You'd stopped using it years ago after the station got branded travel tumblers with spill-proof lids. It didn't feel right to toss the old one. So it lived here instead, buried in this drawer, like an artifact that didn't quite know what it meant anymore. You turn it over in your hands. The bottom still has the tiny sticker from the store where you bought it. Half peeled, price smudged, but still there. You remember picking it out because it was the only one with the call letters printed slightly crooked. That imperfection had felt like luck, or at least a quiet joke between you and the universe. You set the mug down on the desk beside the faders. It looks small against the sprawl of buttons and sliders, but somehow it balances the space. The broadcast lamp flickers slightly, casting a red glint across the ceramic surface. For the first time in a while, the booth feels like yours again. Not just a place you work, but a room with corners and stories. A room with memory. Outside the booth window, the sky beyond the parking lot is black, but soft. The stars aren't visible through the light haze, but you can sense their presence, faint and stubborn, still burning behind the clouds. The street lamp by the station sign hums faintly, bathing the weeds and gravel in amber. A moth circles the bulb. It's the only movement you've seen in an hour. You sip the last of the old coffee, now lukewarm and thin. Then you pick up the mug again and wipe it gently with your sleeve before filling it from the pot in the break room. The smell isn't great, but the act itself has meaning. Carrying the mug through the quiet building, hearing the soft slosh of liquid inside, it all makes the space feel more real. Back at your post, the new track is halfway through. You don't recognize this one either. The file name is just a number, something someone uploaded to the library long ago and forgot. It's a little warped at the edges, like the file was ripped from a tape or burned from an old CD with just a bit too much wear. The imperfection fits the hour. You rest your hand next to the mug. It sits there like a companion, unassuming and warm. It doesn't matter that no one can see it. It's enough that it's here, grounding you, giving shape to the desk and the hour and your voice as it carries out across whatever airwaves still carry anything at all. You consider saying something about it on air, but decide against it. There are objects that don't need explaining. Sometimes their presence is more powerful when left unnamed. The listeners, if there are any tonight, wouldn't need to hear about a chipped mug in order to feel the steadiness it brings. They'd hear it in your voice, in the calm between your words. You take a slow sip. It's bitter, but it's heat more than taste now. That's all it needs to be. You glance down at the phone lines again. Still empty. Still waiting. It's strange, but not disappointing. There's a kind of peace in knowing the silence isn't personal. The world simply sleeps. You adjust the fader slightly, not because it needs it, but because your hands are used to being part of the rhythm. Your fingers brush the console like they're turning pages in a book no one else will read. The booth settles around you again. The music fades. The signal carries forward. The coffee stays warm just long enough. And the mug stays right where it belongs. If you've made it this far into the night, thank you for being here. If this quiet is keeping you company, consider subscribing to Quilloren Radio. It helps more than you'd think, and it lets us keep the signal going for nights just like this one. Now, let's keep drifting. The next layer's waiting. The next track starts with a sound that's hard to place, somewhere between whine through tall grass and the low hum of distant highway lights. It doesn't announce itself, just settles into the background like it was always there, like maybe you've been hearing it all night without realizing. You rest your hands in your lap and listen, not for anything in particular, just to let the sound stretch across the booth like fog across a field. The clock on the wall ticks once, then seems to hesitate, as if reconsidering its job. You look at it. Still working. Still faithful. But something about the movement of the second hand feels just a little different now. Slower, maybe. Or too smooth. It could just be your eyes adjusting to the light. It could also be that time in this room doesn't behave the way it used to. Outside the booth window, the hallway is unchanged, though you think the poster of the Blues Traveler concert has curled a little further inward. You wonder if the Sharpie mustache has always been that lopsided. It looks more confident now, like it knows it's the best part of the poster. You stand and stretch again, same as before, but this time your body moves more like vapor than muscle. The carpet under your feet feels thicker somehow, like you're stepping across a wool blanket instead of industrial-grade radio station flooring. You don't question it. This kind of thing tends to happen at this hour, when the body starts forgetting it has weight and the air takes on the texture of memory. You drift into the hallway. The fluorescent lights hum the same way they always do, but now the sound seems to be coming from the walls instead of the fixtures. A low, steady vibration, like the building is tuning itself to a different frequency. You glance at the ceiling and catch a glimpse of a vent that wasn't there yesterday. It's shaped like a square, but a little too tall, like someone drew it from memory and got the proportions slightly wrong. You let it go. Not everything needs fixing. You pass the kitchen again. The overhead bulb is still flickering, though now it pulses with a strange consistency, like it's following the rhythm of a song you can't quite hear. You open the fridge and find that it's empty, except for the root beer and a single lemon, which is glowing faintly and seems to be humming along with the light above. You close the door carefully and nod to the lemon, as a courtesy. The hallway seems longer tonight. You're sure of it. The distance from the kitchen to the conference room has stretched, the doors on either side spaced out just enough to make you second-guess the layout. You try to count them. 6. 8. You get to 4 before losing track. They don't all have labels anymore. One of them has a handwritten sign that says, Records of Records. Another door is labeled, Spare Air. You don't open either. Instead, you return to the record library. The lights flicker on as you step inside, though you don't remember touching the switch. The shelves are as uneven as ever, the mood category still intact. But now there's a new one you haven't seen before, a small section at the end labeled, Songs That Remember You. The handwriting is your own, but you don't recall writing it. You run your fingers along the spines of the records in that section. There's no dust on them, no price stickers, no liner notes. Just blank sleeves with small, careful names. 2 blocks from the bus stop. Room with yellow curtains. That one Tuesday. You don't pull any of them out. You just stand there for a while, feeling the soft weight of the titles. Then you leave, quietly, letting the lights shut themselves off again. Back in the booth, the chair welcomes you with a familiar creak. You sit down and notice the mug has moved slightly, only a few inches, but enough to make you pause. It now sits directly in line with the red on-air light. You hadn't placed it there, but the arrangement feels correct somehow. Balanced. Intentional. The next track has already started. You didn't cue it, but it plays anyway. Something piano-heavy, but with an echo that stretches longer than the notes themselves. Like the room it was recorded in had extra corners. The sound moves through the studio like warm breath on glass. You reach for the fader, not to adjust it, but just to rest your fingers there. It feels different, not cold, not warm. Just softened. The board hums gently under your touch, not mechanical, almost conversational. As if it knows you're still here. You speak again, your voice quieter now, not because you're tired, but because the room calls for it. KQRX, 104.7 FM. This is the part of the night where the music starts doing what words can't. No one answers. But the silence that follows isn't empty. It feels shared, like someone might be nodding along somewhere, 1,000 miles away. Or maybe just outside, beyond the trees, where the signal starts to fade but never quite disappears. You lean back. The lamp flickers, not in warning, just as a reminder. The building is old, but it's listening. And the night, once again, feels slightly out of order, but perfectly in place. You take another sip. Still warm. Still here. The music lingers for a moment after it ends, the way sound sometimes does when you're not sure whether it stopped or just faded out of your awareness. You wait a few extra seconds before cueing the next track, but it doesn't feel like hesitation. It feels like respect. Like letting the air breathe before filling it again. Something in the room has changed. You don't notice it all at once. It's a slow realization, like waking from a nap and realizing the sunlight has moved across the floor. The temperature hasn't dropped exactly, but the air carries a cooler tone now, subtle and clean, like the first few minutes after a window's been opened in a room that's been closed for too long. The lamp is still glowing beside the console, but its light seems more directional now, casting soft shadows that weren't there before. The edges of the booth feel deeper somehow, the corners a little darker, though nothing has actually dimmed. It's just the kind of shift that happens when the hour turns and the building forgets what time it is. You adjust your posture slightly, not out of discomfort, but because the chair suddenly feels more supportive, like it's decided to take its job seriously for once. The creak that usually follows when you lean back is gone. In its place is silence, thick and calm, as though the furniture has reached a mutual understanding with the moment. The console hums gently beneath your fingertips. The levels are still steady, the track running clean. A soft ambient loop with synth pads and distant bells, the kind that sounds like it's playing from the next room, even with headphones on. You don't remember choosing it, but it fits. The hallway outside the booth looks the same, but when you glance toward the glass, the reflection doesn't quite line up. It's close, just a half-second behind, as if the glass is catching up to your movement. It's not jarring. It's more like watching a familiar scene unfold with a different rhythm. A lag that feels intentional. You open the booth door and step into the hallway again. The air is cooler here, definitely. Not cold, just brisk enough to notice. The fluorescent lights overhead buzz a little softer, and their color has shifted slightly. Less white, more of a gentle yellow now, like light filtered through old pages. You walk past the familiar doors, noticing for the first time that the names have softened. The paper labels are still there, but the text has faded to the point where you're no longer reading them, just recognizing their shapes. You pass one marked with a smudge instead of a name. You nod to it anyway. The break room is empty, same as before, but the bulb above the sink is no longer flickering. It's steady now, humming in quiet agreement with the fridge, which is still running even though you're starting to wonder if it ever made noise at all. The lemon inside is gone. You don't feel surprised. Some things don't need to be there forever. You make your way to the back hallway, where the loading dock door sits closed, blind slats tilted half open. The world outside looks unchanged, but the shadows have grown longer, not because of a different light, but because the angle of time has shifted. The stars beyond the trees appear slightly lower in the sky, as if the horizon moved up a notch when you weren't looking. You rest your hand on the doorframe. It's cool and smooth, with a small chip in the paint you've never noticed before. In the chipped spot, there's a layer of green paint beneath the beige, and you find yourself wondering how long ago that color lived here. The building has had more versions of itself than it lets on. You return to the booth, the hallway seeming slightly shorter now, or maybe your steps are longer. Inside, the temperature has settled into something perfect, not something you could describe in degrees, just the kind of air that lets you forget it exists. The lamp is still glowing, but the shadow of your hand across the console is longer, and your voice, when you speak again, comes out a touch deeper. Still here with you on KQRX 104.7. It's just after 3, give or take. I wouldn't trust the clocks too closely at this point. You're not missing much out there. Just us, the signal, and the hour that always forgets its name. The board responds with a soft, almost musical click as the next track cues itself. You don't remember touching anything, but you're not concerned. The station knows what it's doing. You sit back again, hands resting in your lap. The mug is still there, still holding its place beside the on-air light. The red reflection in the glaze looks a little brighter now, not more intense, just clearer. The kind of brightness that doesn't demand attention, only rewards it. You breathe in, slowly, and let the exhale drift out into the quiet room. There's nothing waiting. No calls to answer. No playlists to approve. Just the slow unfolding of the hour, carrying you from one sound to the next. The track plays on, something wordless, low and warm, like a voice humming from the bottom of a stairwell. It doesn't go anywhere. It just stays. You're grateful for that. Nothing dramatic has changed. No doors slammed. No lights burst. But the booth feels different now. Not unfamiliar, just deeper, like you've walked a little further into a room that never ends. And you know you're still not at the center yet. But you're getting closer. It's past 3. The kind of hour that exists in a pocket, tucked between what came before and whatever's next. You're not sure where the time went, but the hands on the clock are further along than you remember. It's not alarming. Just curious. Like finding your car keys already in your hand when you swear you just started looking for them. The track fades out slowly. No sudden silence, just a tapering off, like the music is walking away down a hallway you're not allowed to follow. You don't speak into the mic right away. The pause feels earned. Not empty. Just quiet. Something about the booth feels lower. Not physically, the walls haven't moved, but the ceiling seems to press a little closer, like the room is leaning in to listen. The light from the desk lamp is warmer now, casting a sepia glow on the control panel. It's not harsh. It's the kind of light you'd expect in a photo of someone else's memory. You glance toward the window again. The reflection is gone now. Or rather, it's changed. It still shows the booth, still shows you sitting here, but the image isn't quite in sync. The you in the glass is a second behind, turning their head a little too late, blinking when you've already stopped. It doesn't unsettle you. You just nod to them. They nod back. You leave the booth again, this time with the sense that you're not retracing your steps so much as continuing down a path that loops. The hallway is quieter than before, but not in a dead way. It's full of something. You can't name it, but it's not emptiness. More like held breath. There's a door you hadn't noticed before. No label. Just smooth wood with a metal handle. You don't open it, not yet. Just press your fingertips against it. It's warmer than expected. The vending machine light is off now, but you can still see its shape in the dark. The rows of snacks and drinks inside are there, but they look slightly wrong. A little too symmetrical. Perfect in a way real things rarely are. You step past it without stopping. You're not hungry. The break room is different this time. The chairs are pushed in. The microwave door is closed. The lemon is back on the table, but it's whole again, bright and glossy like it just came from the market. You stare at it for a while, then look away. Some things return without explanation. Back in the hallway, the posters on the wall have changed. They're still framed, still neatly spaced, but the images have shifted. One shows a DJ you don't recognize, hunched over a turntable with eyes that look far too alert for 4 a.m. Another shows a concert flyer with a date that hasn't happened yet. You keep walking. You reach the lobby, though it doesn't feel like a lobby anymore. It feels like a waiting room for something else entirely. The furniture is familiar, but the cushions no longer have creases. The magazines are stacked neatly, untouched. Outside the glass doors, the parking lot is gone. In its place, a field. Tall grass swaying under a dim, gray sky. No moon. No stars. Just horizon. You head back toward the booth, even though you're not sure you ever left it. The hallway stretches longer than before. Not in a dreamlike way, there's nothing wobbly about it. The tiles are clean. The walls are straight. It's just longer. And you walk it like you've walked it every night for years. When you finally sit down again, the chair adjusts itself slightly under your weight, like it was expecting you. The console hums with a new tone, a little deeper, as if the wires beneath have settled into a slower frequency. You turn the mic back on. The light clicks red again. You speak softer now, but your voice sounds stronger in your ears. You're still tuned into Quilloren Radio. If you're hearing this, it means you made it past the hour that most people sleep through. That makes you one of us. There's no response, of course. Just the low background noise of the station, the ambient buzz of a building alive with memory. But that's fine. This part of the shift isn't about replies. It's about presence. You cue the next sound, not quite a song, not quite static. It pulses gently, a deep, looping pattern that feels like an echo of breath. You let it fill the space. It doesn't ask for anything. It just is. You lean back. The lamp's glow washes the edge of the console in gold. Your coffee's gone cold, but the mug is warm to the touch. Maybe it never had coffee at all. Maybe you just like the weight of it. Outside the glass, the field is still there. The grass sways, even though there's no wind. You watch for a long time. Nothing else moves. That's the most comforting part. And then you blink. Just once. When your eyes open, the field is gone, replaced by the familiar parking lot. The janitor's van. Your Civic. The booth light. It's all back where it should be. Almost. The posters on the wall are blank now. The vending machine hums, but there's nothing inside. And the reflection in the window is no longer you. It's the booth. Empty. But the mic is still on. The light is still red. And the voice in the room is still yours. You let the loop play for a while. It's low and warm and doesn't ask for much, like a memory you can't place but don't want to lose. It fills the booth, then seems to settle into the corners of the station itself. Like the walls are soaking it in. Like even the wires want something to hold on to. You sip from your mug again. It's still warm, though you're almost sure there's nothing in it. You've stopped trying to explain these things. Somewhere in the past hour, the need to understand gave up its seat to the need to stay grounded. Whatever this place is now, it still has power, sound, structure. That's enough. You glance at the switchboard. Still no calls. No blinking light, no crackle of a line connecting. Just rows of buttons that look more like decoration with each passing hour. But you reach out anyway, gently tapping line 1. The button lights up for a moment. Then fades. No one there. That's when you notice the note. It's folded neatly beside the console. You don't remember placing it. It's not your handwriting. The paper looks old, but the crease is fresh. You unfold it slowly, expecting nothing. But it's brief. Just one line. You're not losing the signal. You're moving with it. You read it twice. Then again. It's not a threat. Not a warning. It's a clarification. And for some reason, it feels right. Like you were starting to ask the wrong question. You tuck the note under the console and look out the booth window again. The parking lot remains, but there's a mist now. Low and even, like a veil pulled halfway across the world. The edges of the light poles blur. The van is still parked. So is your car. But there's something else at the far end of the lot. A shape you can't identify. Not because it's moving, it's perfectly still, but because it refuses to resolve into anything specific. Your eyes slide off it each time you try to focus. You don't try again. Instead, you dig through the old drawers beneath the console. Most are empty. One has a cracked cassette labeled Wormhole 2. You pop it in, half expecting it to break. But it plays. A voice comes through. It isn't yours. It isn't recent. Quilloren Radio. 3:46 a.m. If you're hearing this, then the loop held. That's good. That means you're still inside. The voice is tired, but clear. A woman's, low and measured. She doesn't sound surprised to be heard. She continues. There's no script after this point. No traffic logs. No ads. You can play music if it helps. But the signal is carrying you now, not the other way around. Don't fight the drift. It's not decay. It's retuning. There's a brief pause. Then, don't leave the booth unless you have to. The tape clicks off. No rewind, no hiss. Just silence. You don't move for a while. You listen to the silence like it's trying to speak. Eventually, you reach up and turn off the mic. Not because you're done, but because it feels like the right thing to do in this moment. The booth hums a little louder without your voice in the mix. The building feels more awake. You turn on a different track. One buried in the library's archives, labeled only as Signal Test. It's less a song and more a pattern. Rising tones, intermittent static, occasional musical notes that never resolve. You let it run. The hallway lights flicker once. Then hold. You think about the other DJs who sat in this booth before you. Some of their names are still scratched into the side of the desk. Gary 1987. Lena Nights. J. 3 a.m. People you never met. People who might have had nights like this one. Nights where the signal didn't behave, but didn't break. Just shifted. You whisper to the empty air. If anyone's still listening, you stop. The rest feels unnecessary. If they are, they already know. You reach for the switchboard again. This time, line 2 lights up. It's solid. Not blinking. You press it. There's no voice. No greeting. Just a low tone, like an old dial-up modem breathing in reverse. You let it play for a few seconds. Then it ends. Click. That's enough for now. The building breathes with you. You cue up another sound. A soft ambient layer, mixed with distant thunder and low guitar. You sit back. Let it stretch out. And behind the music, in the far distance of the signal, you almost think you hear a voice humming along. The line hasn't blinked again since that strange tone. You're not sure whether you imagined it, or whether the station is playing by a different set of rules now. You glance at the tape deck, half expecting that cassette to be gone, but it's still there, still labeled in faded handwriting. You pull open the station's logbook, flipping past empty pages and smudged ink until you find an entry dated 1994. It reads, Caller 3:12 a.m. Claimed to be from somewhere just past the static. Let her speak. She didn't know her name. That's all it says. The pencil had pressed too hard on the paper, leaving a faint imprint on the next page. You close the book and sit back. The booth feels quiet, but not empty. The speakers begin humming again, playing something you never loaded, a track of wind chimes, soft distortion, and what sounds like a train passing far in the background. It's not on the playlist, but the system isn't registering it as unknown. You let it play. Then the mic light clicks on. You didn't touch anything. You double-check the board, but all your switches are exactly where you left them. Your voice comes out more calmly than expected. If you're just joining us, welcome to Quilloren Radio. It's late. Or early. Depends on where you are. I'm still here, and the station's still broadcasting. If this signal reaches you, you're not alone. Before you can hit the button to mute the mic, the light clicks off by itself. You sit frozen for a few seconds, listening for something, anything. A low creak sounds behind you, like a chair shifting or a cabinet settling. You don't turn around. You just speak softly, almost under your breath. Okay. The room settles again, and you stare at the soundboard, hoping for a sign that someone out there is still listening. Eventually, you get up and walk to the studio window. The fog outside has thickened but stays still, like it's respecting an invisible boundary at the edge of the parking lot. Your car is still where you left it, but the dark shape you saw earlier is gone. In its place, you notice a faint light, too dim to be headlights, too steady to be a flashlight. It doesn't move. It doesn't blink. It simply remains. You return to the console and notice the drawer you left ajar is now fully open. Inside, a folder you didn't see before. You slide it out and open it to find a single sheet, a hand-drawn map of the town and surrounding area. At first glance, it looks right. But then you notice the street names are slightly off. Familiar, but altered, like someone tried to reconstruct the layout from memory and got most of it wrong. Just outside the edge of town, someone circled a blank patch of land labeled FM Quiet Zone in red ink. You set the map aside and return to the console. The switchboard blinks. Line 3, slow and steady. You hesitate for a beat, then press it. No voice greets you. Just breathing, faint and steady. Not threatening. Just there. You wait for the caller to say something. After 10 seconds, the line cuts out. There's something comforting in that, as strange as it sounds. You're not alone. Someone heard you, even if they didn't speak. You sit back, eyes closed, and let the music play. The sound bed evolves on its own, shifting from subtle jazz to the faint echo of a weather broadcast, distorted and unclear. You don't remember adding any of this to the rotation. You think back to your first overnight shift. The booth felt like a spaceship then. The panels were intimidating. The mic seemed too close. You mispronounced band names and spilled coffee on your notes. You assumed no one was listening, that this was just practice, a voice in the dark. But then a woman from Nebraska called and said, "I needed that song. My dog just died." You still remember the way her voice cracked. You cue up another track, something labeled Nightline Loop 2B, in fading Sharpie. A mix of rainfall and saxophone, warm and nostalgic. You let it play as you speak into the mic again, more softly this time. If you're somewhere out there, and the world feels far away, just know this signal's still running. We're still here. And so are you. You turn the mic off and let the words fade into the mix. The studio seems quieter than before, but not cold. The lights dim slightly, like someone adjusted the brightness without touching a switch. You breathe in, then out. The building creaks again, softer this time, and for the first time all night, you smile. You've stopped checking the clock. There's no point. The same 20 tracks rotate in the automation system, set to loop when the shift ends. You still glance occasionally, out of habit, but the numbers barely register anymore. They shift without meaning. You could be 3 minutes from sign-off or 3 hours in. You can't tell. At some point, You got up and walked around the station again. It wasn't a decision. Your legs just moved, and then you were in the hallway. The linoleum floor was uneven, slightly warped in some spots from the summer humidity. You paused to press your palm flat against the window of the old supply closet. There's a broken fan in there that whines when the weather changes. It wasn't doing anything now. Just sitting there, like everything else. The vending machine near the break room hums steadily, the same pitch it always holds. You wonder when it was last refilled. There's a pack of peanut butter crackers at the bottom that's been in there since January, or maybe longer. You tap the glass once, not trying to get anything, just checking that it was still solid. You walk past the studio where the morning show used to run. It still smells faintly of hairspray and peppermint gum, though no one's been inside for weeks. Maybe months. You flip on the light just to make sure the walls are still green. They are. That same weird shade of minty seafoam the station manager insisted was inviting. It never was. It's the color of a waiting room or a dentist's office. You switch the light off and keep going. Eventually, you find yourself back in your chair. There's a warm dent in the cushion where you left it, which feels strangely comforting. The headphones rest neatly on the desk. The mic is still live. You check the board. Levels steady. The signal's holding, despite everything. You glance at the messages panel on the monitor, even though you know it's empty. No shoutouts. No requests. The last comment was from someone named Doug87, 3 nights ago, just the word yo. You replied with a hey, but it never lit up again. You start talking, though you don't know why. Maybe it's the silence. Maybe it's the comfort of hearing a voice, even if it's your own. You describe the sound of the vending machine, the flicker of the hallway light, the way the parking lot looks under the cheap sodium bulbs. You mention the empty desks, the dusty fan, the strange green walls. You say it all plainly, as if you're explaining it to someone half asleep. You imagine they're still out there, your one listener. Maybe they're lying in bed with the radio low, trying to find a station that hasn't gone fully automated. Maybe they're working a night shift like you, sweeping floors, keeping watch, waiting for morning. You hope so. You hope they hear you. The track ends. You let the silence hang a little too long before cueing the next one. There's no one to complain. No manager listening in. No caller to ask if something's wrong. You used to get a guy who called every Friday at 3:10 a.m. on the dot. He'd ask if you could play that old Cranberries song. He never said which one. Just that one. You'd guess, and he'd say, "Yup, that's the one." You never got his name. That line's been dead for months now. Outside, the wind moves gently across the lot, lifting a few dry leaves into a slow spin. You can't hear it, but you see them drifting past the security light. It's like the world's looping too, just like your playlist, just like your voice. You wonder if, maybe, this is it. Maybe the loop is all there is now. The same songs. The same chair. The same hum. You're not sad about it. Just noticing. Observing. You sip from your coffee. Still warm, somehow. Still bitter. You adjust the mic stand, just because. You lean in and start talking again, softer now, like the night's starting to listen more closely. You tell the story of the supply closet fan, the dusty desks, the blinking console that once controlled the call-ins. You make it sound like a legend. Like this place used to matter. The song fades in beneath your words. Something slow and gentle with a piano. You let your voice trail off. You let the music take over. The console light flickers. The clock says 3:10 again. You don't remember seeing it change. You don't remember starting this track. You don't remember if this is the 5th or 50th time you've said any of this. But the station hums, and the signal holds, and you're still here. It's nearly 4 a.m. The fluorescent lights have dulled to a kind of humming gray, casting soft shadows along the carpet seams. You've turned the studio chair slightly, just enough to see the edge of the window. Outside, nothing has changed. The same wind moves the same paper cup along the curb. The same bulb flickers on the far end of the parking lot. The same Civic waits beneath it, windows fogged. There is a kind of suspended time to these hours, like the world is paused but you're still somehow moving inside it. You think about what this station used to be. There were interns once, and callers who phoned in from the bar down the road. There were traffic reports, awkward weather updates, giveaway nights. You remember one Halloween when someone called pretending to be a ghost. They stayed in character for 9 minutes, demanding you play Phil Collins. You were annoyed at the time, but now you'd give anything for that call again. There were nights where you barely had time to breathe between calls. Now, it's been nearly an hour since the last light blinked on the board. You start wondering if the phone even works anymore. Maybe it's not just the audience that's vanishing. Maybe the station itself is slipping through something invisible. There's a shelf near the back wall with old CDs, promos from bands that never made it past regional tours. You run your fingers along the cases, not really looking. Most of them are cracked or mislabeled, stuffed into the wrong sleeves. One of them still has a post-it on the front that just says, "Solid Vibes." You smile at that. You don't know who wrote it, but it feels like a message from a friend you never met. That's what this booth has always been. Not a performance. Not a job. Just a long conversation with someone you can't see, and maybe never will. The chair squeaks as you lean back. It's grown stiffer over the years, one will slightly bent, causing it to lean ever so slightly left. You've gotten used to it. A lot of things around here lean in strange directions. The desk, the lamp, even the mic stand, held upright by duct tape that's turned the color of old teeth. But it all still works. Mostly. You think of that as a small miracle. A quiet kind of loyalty from the objects you've surrounded yourself with. You reach for a cassette sitting on the side console. It's unlabeled, which is usually a sign that it was recorded late and forgotten early. You pop it in, and the sound of static fills the room. Then a voice, your voice, younger, less measured. You're doing a bit about people who leave voicemail messages for their pets. You're not sure it's funny now, but the laugh track from the co-host makes it feel warmer. You'd forgotten what it was like to not talk alone. The co-host left in 2002, moved to Arizona. Got into real estate. You haven't spoken since. The tape plays on, a little warbled now. You let it. The hum of it joins the low buzz of the ceiling light, and the soft churn of the heater in the corner. The space becomes layered in sound, the way it used to be. It's comforting. Not because it's perfect, but because it remembers. The clock clicks softly. 4:08. The news jingle is scheduled at 4:30, but you doubt anyone's waiting for it. You think about skipping it entirely, just letting the looped ambient mix keep rolling. It's mostly field recordings at this hour, a slowed-down train whistle, distant thunder, wind through pines. You like that one. It feels like a place you've been before, even if you can't quite name it. You lean forward and press a few buttons, adjusting levels you could manage in your sleep. The station ID plays again, barely audible, a fading echo. It used to feel like a banner waving in the night, a signal that you were here, holding the mic, holding space. Now it feels more like a whisper, almost too quiet to catch. You don't turn it up. You let it live in the hush. Your coffee's gone lukewarm in its mug, the ceramic chipped along the lip. You drink it anyway. It's part of the rhythm. You know which sips are bitter, which ones have settled. You could chart your nights by the coffee rings left on the console, or the way the light shifts against the far wall as the hour changes. You take a slow breath. There's no one to rush you. No clock that matters. The city outside has long gone to sleep, or maybe just paused long enough for you to step outside of time with it. You think about who might be out there. One listener, maybe two. A security guard in a booth with a radio propped near the heater. A trucker on the highway, flipping stations until he catches your voice and lets it stay. A night nurse in a break room, not really listening but letting the sound keep her company. You speak softly into the mic again. No notes. No script. Just you, the hum, the air between thoughts. You tell a story about a vending machine that always gave the wrong soda, and how no one complained because it gave the good wrong. Root beer instead of cola. You say it like it matters, and in that moment, it does. Outside, the paper cup has stopped moving. The wind must have settled. Or maybe the cup just found a groove in the pavement that it fit into, snug and final. You think that might be a nice way to end the night. You sit there, letting the sound roll. Not silence, not noise. Just presence. And in this quiet moment, it's enough. The world is still turning. The mic is still on. And you are still here. The hour has become slow, thick with quiet. There's a softness to it now, like cotton around the edges of your thoughts. You glance at the clock again, even though you already know. 4:22. The digital numbers blink with a tired rhythm, the colon between them pulsing like a slow heartbeat. You've stopped watching the time to keep pace. Now it's just something your eyes return to out of habit, like glancing at the moon. You press a button and let the music fade gently into a field recording. Crickets. Somewhere in the distance, a frog calls once, then goes quiet again. The kind of sound that feels half-dreamt. You lean into it, lowering your voice as you speak into the mic. You're not really delivering a segment anymore. You're narrating the quiet. A hand on a shoulder that no one can feel but might still imagine. You talk about the weirdness of laundromats at 2 a.m., the warmth of clothes still damp at the edges. About the old janitor who once called in every Friday night just to say good luck before clocking out. You never asked where he worked. You liked not knowing. It made the ritual feel more real somehow. You wonder if he still listens. If he's still around. If he remembers. Your words trail off and you let them. The silence that follows isn't awkward. It feels earned. Like a long exhale after holding your breath for hours. There are no cues, no scripts, no rush to fill space. Only the late-night hum of a station that hasn't given up, even if the world outside seems to be forgetting it. You let a long instrumental play, something from a decade ago, piano and synth, drifting like fog. It's music that asks for nothing. Just a slow, steady presence to rest your thoughts against. It fills the room but doesn't take it over. You've grown to love those tracks the most. The ones that stay just long enough to keep you from drifting too far, then vanish before you can cling to them. The heater clicks again. A familiar pop and then the dull hiss of warm air moving. You've stopped noticing it, except in moments like this, when everything else is still. It's one of the few sounds you trust completely. It doesn't try to be anything. Just there. Steady. A little broken, maybe, but reliable in its own way. You sit back and let your eyes close for a moment. Not to sleep, just to listen. To be part of the stillness instead of filling it. The headphones press gently against your ears, and the ambient track continues, unchanged. A breeze through leaves, the soft drag of a branch against a window, maybe even the chirp of a distant bird confused by the hour. And beneath it all, your own breath, slow and even. You let that become part of the mix too. You wonder what will happen to all this. The booth. The station. The signal still crawling its way through empty highways and oversleeping neighborhoods. Will someone come in one day and unplug it all? Flip a breaker, pull the wires from the wall, and turn this into a storage room. Or maybe it'll just fade without anyone noticing. The station will go quiet, and the only people who'll know are the few who were still listening when it happened. But for now, it's still here. And so are you. You turn the mic back on one last time. Your voice barely above a whisper now. Not dramatic. Not poetic. Just real. You say, if you're out there, thanks for staying up with me. Then you let the quiet return. The track fades. Another begins. This one is just soft chords held beneath the sound of night insects. It's almost nothing. Almost silence. And yet, it carries everything. Your hand rests near the board. You don't move it. You don't have to. There's nothing left to do tonight. Just the drift. You stare into the window again. The glass doesn't reflect you clearly anymore. Just shapes. The shadow of a chair. The edge of a mic. A faint outline of a figure sitting still in a pool of soft red light. And beyond that, a parking lot holding the same shadows it always has. The Civic. The flickering lamp. The edge of a tree with one broken branch that moves even when there's no wind. You've stopped trying to explain that. You sip the last of the coffee. Cold now. It doesn't matter. It's not about the taste. It's about the ritual. You place the mug down exactly where it always goes. A circle left beneath it, faint and permanent. The final seconds of the track tick by. You don't cue another. You let it run its course. Let the air breathe on its own. Just for a little while. And in that space, the station keeps going. Not loudly. Not proudly. Just quietly. And if someone, somewhere, is still awake to hear it, even just for a moment, then it's enough. You're still here. And the night goes on.